We're here today with Judge FLORA Barth Wolf of the First Judicial District of Pennsylvania. Hi, Judge.
Hello, Len.
Thank you for being here today.
It's nice to come back. Good to see you.
Can we start the interview by going all the way back to your early life, your childhood, where you were reared and that sort of thing?
Sure. I was born in Washington, D.C., something few people can say, and grew up there, went to public school, spent a year in Berkeley, California in high school, and a year in Cambridge, Massachusetts when I was 6, but basically lived in Washington. Went off to Connecticut College in 1960. And when I graduated from college, I spent a year at Johns Hopkins getting a Master of Arts in Teaching.
Okay.
And taught briefly. And then I married a Philadelphian and I came here. And I've been here ever since.
Okay. Now, after college, then you went to, was it the University of Pennsylvania for law school?
Yes, but that was a decade later and another life.
Okay.
After I got the MAT, I taught, I got married, I had children. And then I was home for about a decade with the children and when my husband was sick and dying.
Oh, yes.
And after
Sorry.
thank you. After he died, I went back to law school and was what Judge Phyllis Beck used to refer to as a retread. There were 5 or 6 of us, women, who were 30 or in our 30s and changing careers. And so she taught us family law, called us her retreads or her geriatric group.
Hardly, but at any rate. And what occasioned your decision to become a judge? How did that all happen?
My decision to go to law school had to do with wanting to be able to impact the world around me. And my experience was that lawyers and judges had power. My husband had been a lawyer. My father was a journalist, but a would-be lawyer.
Okay.
And after law school, I worked in the city solicitor's office, where I got to do a number of different assignments, and then decided I really didn't want the go for the jugular life of litigation.
I see.
That I would like to step back and be a judge and look at cases from the outside and try to make decisions that would impact other people's lives.
In a beneficial way.
In a beneficial
Yeah,
way,
okay.
certainly to be positive.
And then you were assigned, you said initially, to the family division, and sitting in very adversarial sorts of situations, some of them, I guess.
Some of them were. I began doing protection from abuse cases at a time when they were all heard but not usually litigated. So there would be an ex parte hearing to grant an order against a defendant who didn't show up, or a negotiated agreement. And one of the things I learned was that if you could say to the defendant, "Sir," and they were almost always men, if you knew that you could have access to visit with your children, would you have a problem with their mother having primary legal custody? And the guy would say, "That's okay," and then I'd turn to the wife or mother and say, "If you have primary legal custody, are you okay with the children spending time with their father?"
Right.
And many times women would say, "I don't want him around me, but he's fine with the kids." And so that didn't always get litigated.
Yeah. You involved the parties in the decision.
Yes.
Yeah. That's an interesting way of doing it. I think it's probably a good one if both parties buy into it first.
Anything you can do that gets both parties to feel they've won something
Yeah.
and that they don't have to keep coming back at the other party
Mhm.
is to the benefit of the children,
Okay.
because they stop tearing it at the kids.
Yeah.
So I did that for a couple of years, and then I did custody.
All right.
And hearing custody cases may be the hardest thing in our court system.
I can imagine. Yeah. Yeah. Is it one person trying to say that they're better than the other person to have custody of the children?
It is. And again, sometimes you can accommodate people,
Mm-hmm.
work out some system. But oftentimes it was, what is the lesser of two not very good choices?
I see.
Who can these kids stay with and get the most solidity, comfort,
Mm-hmm.
support?
I see.
So that was very, very hard.
Yeah. All right. And it's interesting that you're dealing with parents, but also with children who are the actual subjects
Yes.
of the court hearing. And I think that's really important to address children's needs and wants there.
It is. And I used to take children into the robing room
Mm-hmm.
and interview them on the record with my court reporter. And I had a wonderful court reporter
Uh-huh.
who was very good with kids.
Oh.
She had some rapport, and I did, and we would talk. I can't say that I formally interviewed them,
Yeah.
but I would get some sense.
Uh-huh.
And I tried to explain to children two things. One was that I really cared about what they thought,
Right.
and the other, that this wasn't their responsibility, that I had to make the decision. I would carry the responsibility, and I wouldn't repeat back to their parents anything that they said.
Okay.
Trying to take off them the weight of appearing to choose between parents.
Exactly. That's a great idea, too. And it's a good practice. As I said, I think it's more important to affect children's lives early on rather than to build prisons at the very other end of it. So.
You could write that sentiment across all the courthouse doors. Everything that we invest in early childhood education, everything we invest in child well-being, in prenatal care, will come back to us positively on a huge 10-to-1 ratio, financially, emotionally.
I believe that, too.
Every judge should believe that.
I agree. What were you, what sort of law courtrooms and things did you preside on next? I think you said you sat on a number of different types of cases after that.
I did. I had been in family court, domestic relations for a bit more than 2 years
Mm-hmm.
when the Day Forward civil program
Right,
started.
okay.
Well, first I moved, I felt that I needed a different experience. And I moved to the trial division and began hearing criminal cases.
Okay. Uh-huh.
A great education. I hadn't had any experience in criminal law before that.
Yeah.
I remember very early on a case involving a motion to suppress a drug bust by police officers.
Mm-hmm.
And as I looked at the lawyers, listening to their argument, the district attorney said to me, "Judge, I have the current case on suppression." And the public defender said, "No, Judge, I have the current case." He said, "Give me the cases," which in
Yeah.
those days were printed out and handed up.
Uh-huh.
I got off the bench, I read them, and it wasn't that I hadn't been taught it,
Yes.
but I hadn't seen it in 2 or 3 years,
Right.
and the law had
Right.
moved along. And after I'd read those two opinions,